so we are a few days past the 2018 midterm elections. The insanity is over, right? No, everybody's just getting ramped up for 2020 at this point, but we are past the midterms. What have we learned? What have we learned with what happened during the midterms, and what can we expect going forward? Well, first thing I learned, honestly, is that apparently Beto 2020, because apparently a lot of people in this country, specifically people in Hollywood, want a Hispanderer-in-chief. Anyway, moving on. So what happened exactly during these elections? Well, if you look at governorships, still more Republican governors than Democrat governors. There were a few that went over to the Democrats, but then there were a couple that went over to Republicans, so really nothing to talk about there. Look at the Senate. Republicans actually picked up 2 or 3 seats to maintain control of the Senate, and now they have more votes going forward. The House flipped by, I believe, 28 to 29 seats went from Republicans to Democrats. Is this unusual? No. Midterms oftentimes happen like this. They did for Obama, they did for Bush, they did for Clinton, they did for Reagan. This happens every single time. What's interesting about this time is that it was 20 some odd seats, whereas if you look back at Obama, it was over 60 seats. Bush, it was over 40. I believe Clinton was somewhere around the 40 mark as well. Same thing with Reagan, it was 40 or 50 seats that flipped. So this wasn't really a referendum on Republicans. I mean, yeah, it flipped houses, but it does that almost every single time, and usually by a lot more seats than what the Democrats were able to pull off this time. So really there's not much to talk about when it comes to that. But one other thing that we definitely did learn is that when a political party comes together to lie and trash a man's entire life for no reason but political gain going into a midterm election, well, it doesn't turn out too well, because you see, every single senator that was from a battleground or swing state that also happened to be one of the Democrats trashing Brett Kavanaugh and trying to stop him from getting on the Supreme Court, they all lost their races. They're no longer senators. It all went to Republicans. And in fact, the Democrat that actually did back up Brett Kavanaugh and vote for him, Manchin, he kept his seat. So hopefully Democrats will learn to stop trying to ruin people's lives with lies and treachery, all in the name of pushing an agenda or winning some sort of political battle. But of course, they probably won't learn that. Now, as far as going forward from here, what can we expect? Well, Republicans have roughly 2 months where they could pretty much hammer home anything they want. They could fix the VA, which they ultimately really desperately need to do. They could finally get rid of this Obamacare bill once and for all. They could lower taxes. They could get rid of more regulatory bodies. They could do away with the ATF. All things, national reciprocity, all things they could do that they've promised to do in the past, they could rush through right now if they really, really wanted to before they lose control of the House. But they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. And the reason they're not going to do it is they ultimately don't really care. Why do you think Republicans and Democrats alike have spent decades building regulatory bodies that make rules and regulations instead of them having to pass laws to accomplish the same thing? It's because they want a scapegoat and they don't want to do their jobs. That's why. See, they don't want to risk pissing anybody off one way or the other and losing their position of power, so it's easier if they just give their job basically to a regulatory agency, whether it be the EPA, whether it be the ATF, whether it be ICE, it doesn't matter. Let's give it to them so we don't actually have to do our jobs. And that's what we can pretty much expect from the Republicans while they still remain in control for the next couple of months. What can we expect after that? Oh, the fun, the joy, where Nancy Pelosi, or whoever ends up being in charge of the House once it switches over to Democrats, is going to do nothing but go after Trump in investigation after investigation after investigation, which will ultimately lead nowhere. They're going to try and impeach him, and it will go nowhere, and nothing will happen, but it will be 2 years of let's just play the game of let's see if we can ruin Trump's life and his legacy. That's pretty much all that's going to happen. It's going to be a lot of drama and political theater and grandstanding and ultimately just bullshit that will equate into nothing. That's what we can expect going forward with Democrats running the House. So there you go. No blue wave, guys. It was more of a blue splash. That's pretty much it. That's what we learned. Hey, don't screw around with people's lives as a political party, you know? And hey, there is no referendum on Trump or the Republicans. It pretty much proved the exact opposite.